Welcome back. You're still watching the news review right here on Power Breakfast with me, Fred Ndimuli. This is Citizen TV. I'm in studio with Senators Kimani Wamatangi and Mutula Kilonzo Jr. from Kiambu and Makueni, respectively. Continuing looking at the headlines, of course, there's a very interesting one here. 10 Kenyans worth 500 billion shillings. I already posed this question to Senator Mutula Kilonzo, and he answered. I'm going to ask you because new survey shows more people joined the League of the Super Rich last year, with those worth more than 5 billion now at 90. Senator Kimani Wamatangi, are you on that list?
Well, I hope to be on the list very soon.
Could just be one on the list.
I would aspire definitely to be on that list and more. You know, one interesting thing that they say in reporting. I think I read that on the Forbes magazine, that 90% of the money in the world is in the hands of only 1% of the population of the world.
True.
And they say that if you took all that money and distributed it equally to every person in the world, in 1 year it would be back to the same people. So
it would not help.
What I'm trying to say and show is that it is the traits, the character, the attitude that you have towards money that gives you money. So, but needless to say, you know, a situation here in Kenya, the gap between the rich and the poor is nowhere anyone in the world would want to even imagine, because and unfortunately it's been widening every day. 500 billion shillings for many people, they can't comprehend. Only 10 people.
Sorry?
That's an enormous amount of money.
500 billion shillings
in hands of 10 Kenyans. That means
let me explain how bad it is. Yeah. The total shareable revenue, the one that the CS is trying to reduce, is 302. That's 47 counties.
302 billion.
302 billion.
10 Kenyans are worth more than that. What they're sharing for all counties.
It means those 10 billion Kenyans can finance 47 counties.
Or for 2 years almost.
For 2 years.
Almost for 2 years.
That's what it means. Wow. Can lend money. That's how bad it is. And you know, 47 counties means the bulk, 90% of, I mean, it's not everybody. Yeah, 47 counties is everybody in the country.
But Kenya is broke, Senator, and we're coming to that now. Kenya is broke. We need 84 billion shillings. Well, 10 Kenyans are worth more than 500 billion, so they can actually...
well, okay, the two may not literally have a direct, you know, relationship between where
it's just juxtaposing the two headlines.
Yes, and I think the part that, in my view, we need to address is how do we lift more people, more Kenyans, from poverty, from living below the poverty line, and also ensure, because one of the things, and I remember we having that debate here, one thing that eventually remains true is that the richest people in this country, the top richest people, don't pay taxes. They don't pay the taxes they should be paying on the monies they hold.
Yes.
If you ask, for example, all those people holding billions of shillings in treasury bonds and bills, when and how do they pay their taxes? Others keeping property that generates revenue. Others having invested in foreign countries, in safe havens, for that matter. And so, if we had a system, and like most countries have adapted, whereby you ensure that people are taxed according to what they have. If you look at our tax system, it's actually introverted, such that the poorer pay more, the richer pay less, and definitely, you know, we would have to
and then we end up with a headline like this: tighten your belt, we are 84 billion shillings broke. Now, this will definitely affect President Uhuru Kenyatta's Big Four agenda, and this is a story on the front page of the Daily Nation. Manufacturing, health, food security, affordable housing, although the photos they've used on the headline are very interesting. When they talk about affordable housing, Senator Mutula Kilonzo, you recognize this picture?
Yes.
It doesn't look anything affordable.
No. This looks like my father's house in Manzoni.
It is your father's house in Manzoni. That's the photo they've used on the Daily Nation. Mutula Kilonzo Senior's house at Manzoni. This one is not affordable housing by any standard, but yes,
Valhalla.
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 Wow. And then they say the government is looking to it doesn't look affordable, Senator. But now this definitely affects the president's agenda. The president is very keen on securing his legacy. He's already outlined what he wants to do in the over the next 5 years. Yet we are seeing problems that some may say were caused by his own administration, too much borrowing, failing to tackle issues of corruption, failing to tighten the loopholes where money just gets lost within government. Do you think the president should focus more on that right now, if at all he's to secure his legacy? Because if things continue like this, there's going to be a problem.
Well, I think in tackling the issues about the economy, we have to be, very careful and sensitive. But also, tackle it with a lot of economic intelligence, for that matter. One, depending on which angle we want to approach the debate about the economy. First, if you ask me about management, and I would want to talk about it from the point of debt management against borrowing. I mean, the story of money is the same, Fred. Whether you have borrowed a trillion or whether you're borrowing 500 shillings. Whether you're borrowing it to go and invest in a mega project or whether you're going to build a kiosk. The story of management is the same. The story of the reasons and of borrowing and the ideal scenario of borrowing is the same. One, if you're borrowing money to go and put in an investment in your village because you want to create activity, the economic around your village where people can have what they need and come and buy, the questions that you ask yourself are the same questions that you ask yourself when you're borrowing for a country. I mean, are you taking this money, investing it in a kiosk where people can find their way to come and buy, and what they're buying, will it help their lives and improve? Now, if you magnify that 1,000,000 times and say this is the same reason why I'm borrowing all this money, for example, like Eurobond 2, that you're going to take this money into projects that are going to spur economic activity that will change the lives of people. And of course, I don't want to get into the details of explaining how the undercurrent of economics work in a society. But of course, in socioeconomics, and I'm sure Mutula Kilonzo Jr. has got a good view of that too. You see, if that money is borrowed to be put to use that will have a ripple effect down the economy, down to the last person, based on what you do here at the epicenter, then that is called sound borrowing. Fred, the one thing that we, as leaders, that we need to do is to be truthful to our people. And the judgment sometimes we apply when we are setting this standard is lopsided, is wrong, in my view, in some cases. I didn't say in all, in some. Because, for example, if I borrowed $1 billion to come and put up a project here, that I'm estimating that in the next 20 years will change the lives of the people around Nairobi County. And within the 21st year, you will start seeing the returns because the economy will have changed and we're able to get repay. If you come on the 10th year or the 12th and judge my plan to have failed without you taking into account that what I'm trying to invest in is something that's going to have an effect at that time, then you're going to arrive at a wrong judgment. So that's why I said in one aspect we must look at it that way. Because, for example, and I say this with a very clear mind, most of the projects that government was investing in from the borrowings of Eurobond 1 and even in Eurobond 2 are not intended, actually, or even planned to have the effect that you would expect in the first or second year, or even the fifth year.
We've read reports that some of this borrowing is not even intended to finance projects long term, as he says.
No.
Some of this borrowing is simply to repay some other loans.
Refinancing.
Refinancing loans.
In fact, the first Eurobond, that the controversial Eurobond, immediately we borrowed 600 million. Immediately was deducted from the loan because it was supposed to repay part of the loans that apparently were from the Grand Coalition government. The and Senator Wamatangi is a good businessman, trust me.
Yes.
He understands this, and that's why he's very hesitant. But he will tell you that when he borrows for his businesses, he would have a projection. You would project, first of all, the repayment. You would project that you would have financing for payment, and you would not run short. That is called prudent financial management. And if you, at some point, thought that in the middle of the repayment you would have a problem, you would approach your bank and ask, please extend XYZ. Now, strictly speaking, therefore, the government has been unable to explain to the public, and Wamatangi is right, and you cut him short. You should have let him finish the sentence. That when government borrowed for these mega projects, for example, Standard Gauge Railway or even Eurobond, the effects would not be seen in 2 or 3 years. It will be 10 years. But there should be an explanation on the middle term. What do you do in the middle? Because you're saying, wait for this to happen in 10 years. The hole that you create in the middle of this process is what they have been unable to explain.
And it should be managed as well.
And it should be managed. Greece found itself in the same problem. That you borrow to finance what we call recurrent expense. You know, you borrow to pay, for example, salaries. Now, what county governments are doing when they run short of financing from Treasury is they are going to get overdrafts. And what are these overdrafts for? They are for payment of salaries. The Greece issue, that you're borrowing to pay recurrent. There's a 17% interest repayment. How is that one covered? By what? And county governments are not trading. County governments are not trading to make profits. In fact, they are not a business like Wamatangi, where everything is pegged on a figure. You're going to make X. County governments are not making money. Now, Standard Gauge Railway, what is the return on investment? After how long are you supposed to feel the effects of borrowing 325 billion shillings? It's not on passenger traffic. When they issue statistics and they say 7,000 or 8,000 Kenyans have used the Standard Gauge Railway, that is not what is supposed to return the money that we have borrowed. Those are the explanations that are missing.
Absolutely, and you know, Fred, that is precisely where I was going, and Senator Mutula Kilonzo now gives you the answer, and use that same example of the Standard Gauge Railway. And you know, this is a project that has been planned all the way to completion and firm investment for it to give returns. For example, the Standard Gauge Railway is already done up to Nairobi. There is a project that's already ongoing, phase 2, to do it up to Naivasha. And in Naivasha, this is where it's supposed again to congenially join with the other investments around there. That is, for example, one, the industrial park that is again connected with cheap power generation from green energy in Okari and the other fields there. And correctly and rightly, as Senator Mutula Kilonzo says, actually the projection that the Standard Gauge Railway was going to be profitable to this country was not based on passenger traffic, on cargo. And the other subsidiary businesses that is going to generate, for example, like in those industrial parks and factories and employment generated around those industrial parks. So here you are, you have borrowed and you have done it up to Nairobi, and you need to complete it up to Naivasha and onwards to Malawi for it to make sense. So you see, one thing that we have to be very clear about here is that in borrowing, and as my colleague here says, it's true, I'm a businessman. I've been in business for a while. I know. You don't have two baskets that you say this is the basket for where I'll be dipping my hands to go pay interest. This is another basket for my investment. This is another basket for my profits. You have one basket. You have to manage this basket, and it is it's the good sense of projection that you know that when I'm investing, I'll come here, I'll put here, and then I can also go and get more and put here until my plans are finished. And so, absolutely, I would say with a straight face that the time when we can judge whether the projects which have been invested into by government in the borrowing in both cases can only be judged fairly when those projects are complete.
So, gentlemen, you're saying that this kind of headlines, we are broke, will continue for a while. Yes, we'll be broke for a while.
Then
how come we've not planned for this time when we are broke.
It's called the midterm.
Yes,
middle term.
The middle term. That we, as you say, we'll be broke this time around. We'll say 84 billion. Next year, we'll say around this time we are about 100 billion shillings broke.
Yes.
Over the next 10, 15 years, that will be the trend.
The fundamental question, and a lot of these issues were asked of government when they started engaging in either of the mega projects, is what are you going to do to spur development so quickly that you are able to finance the debt? Now, what worries me actually is that, in fact, some of the loans like the standard gauge, so the moratorium is up to, some of them are 2019, the Eurobond is 2019. So when you have such headlines in 2018,
yes,
you actually have more problems. But, you know, they say when you're in a hole, you stop digging.
Yes.
We have asked the debt management portfolio of government has gone overboard. We keep saying that we are managing vis-a-vis GDP, but GDP is not growing. GDP is stagnant. Now, yesterday, when the CS talks about elections, I wondered whether you and the PS, whether they have been around. Who didn't know we were going to have elections? Who doesn't know that you have between the time that you have elections, you have, strictly speaking, a problem? So you factor it in your borrowing, you factor it in your projections.
Yes.
In the 4.5 years, you factor it in how you're going to deal with the election year. And election years are the same all over the world.
You even have the date for 2022.
You even have the date, it's in the constitution. That is the purpose, because you factor it in the planning. So it's not supposed to be a surprise. And therefore, what I'm simply saying is that the people who have advised national government, the financial strategists, should be fired. We should be signing a petition to fire our financial advisors, not signing a petition to fire Sisiri Kariuki for getting the person who got opened the wrong head fired. We should be firing the financial advisors of government.
And
if Kimani Wamatangi, let me tell you, let me finish. If Kimani Wamatangi, the businessman he is, the financial advisor walked into the office in the morning and told him, Mr. Wamatangi, you're broke. In the next, you will not be able to finance.
You will be broke for the next 15 years because of this project.
Because of this project. He will not tell him, oh my goodness, when did this happen? You will tell him, you're fired today. Go home.
And that's how government should be.
You know,
we shouldn't be broke.
Fred,
plan for it.
Fred, my friend, let me... as a businessman, allow me to say a few things, which I believe would make, and I will not complicate them, I'll make them very simple.
Yes.
You see, if you are running a portfolio, if you are running a business, for example, and I'll use very basic examples, that for example, you are running a business with 10 matatus, and those matatus are worth, let's say, 10 million, if they are 10. And then, around those 10 matatus, you have your income that you have, but you want to spruce them up and widen your routes where you want to go. And so you find that you need to invest another, out of your portfolio of 10 million, you need to invest another 500,000. And so you find at that time you're not 500,000 liquid. You know, that does not mean that you are broke. It means that you have that whole of 500 that you would need to think, how will you raise the 500,000, put it in, but in the entire portfolio of what you are running enough to be able to sustain that debt, or to manage that debt. The question you'll be asking, and this is logical, just a minute, let me ask you, how much, we read a budget of how many trillions of Kenya shillings?
1.6.
Yes. And ask yourself, in a whole economy that projects and is now running a budget, an annual budget of 1.6 trillion shillings, what would be the true dent of an effect of an 84 billion budget or whole?
But
and then you find
against the revenue collection of half a trillion.
Then you find if you ask me, this is just a call to say, in my view, that there requires to be measures that are going to be taken in between here for the short term, that will require that hole to be filled.
Including borrowing more?
But that does not mean that does not mean that the train would not run. Doesn't mean that the economy would not move. Doesn't mean that it will be an upheaval that you feel, the ditch. If we are talking about a budget of 1.6 trillion and saying that we are 600 billion broke, then you would be talking about a big thing. Because, you know, in comparison to the size of the economy, and feeling
we're borrowing more than we can generate locally just to finance that annual budget.
It's a fact.
We are not even generating half of the budget as it is.
You know, Fred, let's not forget that Kenya's debt one is many years old. That does not mean that once you come into government and you inherit that debt, you don't manage it well. Two, that's why I told you, it all boils down to what are your projections. Once you have invested what you're getting, and you know, things like variations, refinancing, restructuring are not new, even to IMF itself, who are nini, or even to World Bank, or to anyone who is running a finance. Those are not new terms. Those are economic terms that are used.
Let me tell you,
normally, when you're talking about running you know, an economic vehicle.
And when you're trying to blindside Kenyans, you use those stuff was refinancing and all these things, so that most of us do not understand what's happening.
By the way, you know, Wamatangi said he was going to speak in plain English.
He's not.
And he's not. He's speaking like a businessman.
No, you know.
It's like he's seated in his eye office. Let me tell you. Electricity, you heard of the shortfall.
Yes.
Now, the president signed the interest cap act, where Kenyans were complaining about domestic borrowing by government and interest rates had gone up. These headlines are going to lead to the lifting of the interest caps. These headlines are going to lead to increase in VAT on where there were exemptions.
There's already that proposal. It was in yesterday's headline. As far as fuel prices are concerned, they are reintroducing 16% VAT on petroleum products.
Even what you call sin tax is going to be introduced. You know, the ones who love their beer, the ones who love their cigarettes, the use of mobile phones, everything is going to increase. So this headline is not deliberate. It's deliberate.
It is deliberate.
It is deliberate so that when you say tighten prepare yourself to pay more for food, for fuel, for electricity, so that you can plug in the gap. So they're not simply saying, Wamatangi is right, that the train will stop. The train will not stop. It's only
you just have to pay more.
You just have to pay more.
Now, let's take a break. We'll come back, Senator, and you'll get a chance. The fact is we are broke, and that's a big headline on the front page of the Daily Nation. Kenyans, we are broke. There's 84 billion shillings that we need right now to fit our budget. Let's take a break.